Alright, so today I want to introduce you to the Axanthic ball python morph. And if you haven't seen the Axanthics, it's actually a recessive mutation in ball pythons. And if you actually have a visual with 2 copies of the genes, it actually strips all the color out of the snake and you end up with a completely black and white snake. It's pretty much black and white and silver and gray, and it just strips away all the other colors. It is pretty impressive. If you've ever seen some of the Axanthics, they can be quite impressive sometimes. And really the reason I want to bring it up today is because I'm actually gonna buy an Axanthic female. I'm gonna go on a little shopping spree, and this is for my long-term project. Actually, I have eggs in the incubator. It's the beginning of a project that could take me 5 or 6 years, as a matter of fact, maybe even longer than that. So essentially what I did is I bred an albino pied to a clown, and I have triple hatchlings hopefully in the incubator. I have 6 eggs, and if they hatch, I'm hoping to hold back at least 1 male and several females. I'll breed those together, and I'm hoping for the triple visual albino pied clowns. And what I'm actually going to do with that, if I get a male, I mean the odds are pretty astronomical. It's like 1 in 64, then if you figure the male and female, it's like a 1 in 128 that I'll get a male triple visual albino pied clown. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that snake and I'm going to breed it back to an Axanthic and get the quadruple hets, which would be pretty amazing. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to go on a little shopping spree and bring you along for the ride, and we're going to look for a female Axanthic ball python. And I pulled up some pictures on Morph Market, and we'll kind of look at what's available. I don't know what Bobby's doing here. He's about ready to fall off my neck. But anyway, let's see, where was I? So anyway, before Bobby sidetracked me here, so essentially what I'm going to do is I'm going to buy a female Axanthic. And another thing I'm thinking about is maybe an Axanthic with other genes in the mix. So if I could get like pastel, fire, leopard, something like that, and then the Axanthic. So essentially I could get quadruple hets with multiple genes on top of that, which would be pretty amazing. And then I get a whole variety of snakes, mixing those quadruple hets together with the other genes in the mix. That would be the ultimate rainbow of different snakes coming out of those hatchlings. Of course, it'll probably take me, you know, 5 or 6 years at least, maybe even up to 10 years to get to the point where I'm breeding my quadruple hets together. So it's a pretty exciting, pretty long-term project. I actually have 1 snake up in my quarantine right now, and that is my, let's see, it was a Enchi banana clown male. I just bought him recently. So as soon as that one comes out and goes back into my collection, make sure it doesn't have any mites or respiratory infections or anything, and it's looking really good right now, which is a bonus. If you've been watching my channel, we looked at that snake, we unboxed it, put it up in quarantine, and it looks like there's no mites at all in that snake, which is really good. So as soon as I bring that down here, I'm going to really seriously consider getting some kind of an Axanthic female. So the interesting thing about Axanthic is there's several lines of Axanthic. There's the MJ, the VPI, the TSC, and actually those abbreviations are from the company or the breeder. Like Tsk is the snake keeper line of Axanthic, and people are just crossing random snakes together and they pop on an Axanthic and they put their name, their brand name on it. The interesting thing is, you know, like the Tsk and the VPI are the 2 biggest, I would say, and they're not compatible. So you could breed 2 of them together and you'll get double het for each line of Axanthic. A lot of times these Axanthic lines aren't compatible with each other. And I'd say it's kind of the same thing with like the albino, the caramel albino, and the lavender albino. You could breed those together and you'll get, you know, het caramel, het albino, and het lavender all in the same snake. I say a lot of people don't do that because it's really difficult to distinguish, and a lot of people really try to breed the snakes true. And what I'm really looking at is the Tsk line. I think I'm going to invest in that line, and what I want to do is I'm going to jump over here to my computer and we'll go to Morph Market, and I want to show you some of the really amazing examples of the Axanthics. I think the number one thing I'm going to show you is the Stormtrooper. If you haven't seen the Stormtrooper, is actually made by JD Constrictor, and he just popped out the snake, didn't really know what it was, and he's thinking now that it might actually be an Axanthic Desert Ghost, that he had Desert Ghost floating around in his collection, which is, it was kind of a one-of-a-kind snake, and everyone's trying to reproduce it, and I want to show you that snake. It is pretty incredible. All right, so if you haven't actually seen this snake, this is probably the #1 most popular ball python in the entire history of ball pythons. This is the Stormtrooper, produced by JD Constrictor. This is an Axanthic, and there's something else going on that we're not completely sure with this snake. It was pretty much a one-of-a-kind that we haven't actually seen another one that really looks exactly like this. He thinks maybe it's Desert Ghost in there, but he wasn't exactly sure. And the funny thing is when he first produced this, he actually showcased it at the NARBC, and I actually went to that very first show, and I saw this booth with all these Star Wars Stormtrooper figurines. I was like, what in the world is going on? And come to find out, he named it the Stormtrooper. And these are some pictures. This is kind of interesting. So this one is actually the very same snake with a little bit of age on it, so you can tell we're not sure exactly what's going on, and it really kind of muddied out and got really dark. And then here it is later. Look at how dark this is. This really got super dark with age, and people were, I think, were a little bit disappointed that the Stormtrooper actually changed colors like that. But I think the very first show I saw it, and it was like the price was $50,000, and it was the first time I ever saw that kind of a price tag on a snake there in person. It was pretty incredible. So that is kind of what an Axanthic looks like. That's kind of an exception because it was so unique. So I actually came over here to Morph Market and sorted these by the Tsks Antic. This is the line I'm really looking at, and this is all the ones for sale and that have sold, sorted by the highest price. So you can see they go up to about $10,000 for some of these. The Clown Axanthic, GHI Spider SK Axanthic Clowns. So you know, if I actually hit some quadruple visuals or triple visuals on some of this stuff, it's going to be, you know, some pretty high-end snakes. These snakes are pretty incredible. And the other thing that's interesting, so I'm actually thinking about breeding my quadruple hets together. Then the thing is if you actually get if you get a snake that has albino and Axanthic in it, we call it a snow. And you can see over here on the left, the snow. This is actually a lavender snowball, which is a lavender albino, but a pure snow is actually like a pure white snake with pink eyes. It's really quite incredible. So if you look at some of these, they're definitely out of my price range. Shopping for snakes, these are like $5,000. And you can see a lot of them are produced by JDC, which is JD Constrictor. He specializes in Axanthic ball pythons. So you see a lot of the stuff, especially in the TSK line, is produced by JD Constriction. And I think he really has a really stellar line. I've seen some lines of Axanthic, for example. This one right here, I'm not sure. I've seen some older ball pythons. I don't think it's from age. I've actually seen some lines where it doesn't completely strip all the color. And it's funny, people are still calling TSK Axanthic, and especially with the VPI line, it's not quite as intense and as black and white as some of the other lines, which I find is pretty interesting. And up here in the corner, up in the right corner, you can see this is kind of the another snow with the pink eyes up here. So I actually came over to another page, and we're kind of coming down in price, $2,000, $1,800. And if you can see, a lot of these are really intense when you add pastel to the Axanthic. It really makes them a lot more contrasty and sharpens and brightens the contrast between the black and the white. As a matter of fact, probably the best that I have seen is like a firefly, like this one right here. I've seen some better examples, like the one right below it. Let me scroll down a little bit. This one right here, right in the middle, this is a firefly SK Axanthic. So it has the fire, the pastel, and the Axanthic visual, 2 copies of the Axanthic gene. And it seems like something with the fire just clean cleans it up, and the pastel really brightens it. And that is really what I'm looking for. And if this one was actually for sale, I'd probably consider buying it. $1,400 for a female. That's, I'd say it's kind of in my price range. It's some of these snakes are pretty expensive. And the interesting thing, if you compare that to just like a straight Axanthic, you can see the where it's really white is really kind of silvery and gray in the straight Axanthic. So you can really see the impact of the fire and the pastel. And all right, take a look at this one. This is kind of an anomaly here. This is probably the closest I have ever seen in my life to the Stormtrooper, and that is this Firefly SK Axanthic right here. I mean, to me, this almost looks exactly like the Stormtrooper, which is pretty amazing, and it's only selling for $1,200. And if that one was actually for sale, and if it was a female, I probably would have bought it. So he's got another one here that, it's interesting that the pattern looks like the Stormtrooper on this one, but the one on the left here, it doesn't really look like it has the same pattern. So not quite sure what's going on with the pattern, if there's some kind of hidden gene in the background. And you can see what's really interesting is on some of these, you can see like an Axanthic from someone else, like over here from another breeder. They actually don't strip out as much of the color as the JD constriction line of the TSK Axanthic line, which I find is kind of interesting. And then once you start adding other genes in, it completely changes. This is actually a genetic stripe pastel Axanthic, which is pretty interesting. So if we come over here, let's see, this is kind of the low end of the TSK. So, you know, we're getting a little bit cheaper here. Some of these, you know, some of these straight Axanthics don't really look as black and white as some lines, which is pretty interesting. I've actually seen some people on the internet, on YouTube, kind of showing off some of their Axanthics. I'm like, is that really an Axanthic? It doesn't really look like one. It's pretty amazing how the different lines can look completely different. Even within the same line, the TSK, there's like different lines within different people breeding them. So this is actually, so what I actually did is, this is kind of my little shopping spree over here. So I actually went to the TSK Axanthic, changed the filters over here, and what I actually filtered on this one is, I filtered for females that are available in the TSK line, and I found that there's not a whole lot of females that I really like. There's some that aren't really an impressive line of the TSK Axanthic. I'd say this one from JDC is a pretty nice one. Unfortunately, it's on hold. You have a couple from some other breeders that look like they're still pretty silvery here. The only one I can find from JD Constriction over here that I really liked is this Firebee Leopard SK Axanthic. I actually pulled it up over here. So there's several problems with this snake for me buying it as a breeder. Number one is it has spider in it, and I'm not sure I exactly want to do more spider. I have quite a bit of spider in my collection, and you know there's always the problem with the head wobbles, and it's not really that popular, so I'm kind of shying away from the spider, but I do like the fact that it has the pastel, the fire, and the leopard in there with the TSKs. That is a really powerful breeder. The other problem is, if you scroll down here, this snake is $3,500 plus $70 shipping, so it's a little bit out of my price range at the moment. I don't think I'm going to be investing over $3,500 for a snake, even though it is a powerful breeder. The problem is you know, by the time I make a return on investment in 5 years down the road, it's a long time to sit on a snake like that. So I'll probably look for something probably in the $1,000, $1,500 range, something like that. And then I came over here to the Axanthic VPI, which is kind of interesting. It doesn't seem like the VPI is quite as intense as far as black and white compared to the TSK Axanthic. So if you look at some of these, it seems like they have a little bit more color in there with the lines. Even pretty much everything I've seen, it doesn't really, unless you have a lot of fire or pastel in there, it's not really the silvery Axanthic that you're used to seeing over at the other one. This one on the left over here is pretty awesome. This is a VPI Axanthic Black Pastel Spider Desert Ghost. That is a high-end snake. It's the visual Desert Ghost and the Axanthic. It looks like they were going for kind of a similar Stormtrooper kind of look, and looks like it didn't really work. It's $10,000. That's a pretty incredible snake. And over here, this is more VPI Axanthic stuff. So you see, for me, it's pretty amazing. The VPI Axanthic Anchi Pinstripe. To me, that doesn't look as silvery as a lot of the TSK stuff. It seems like it has a lot more color. And although I've seen some in the VPI line that, I was just watching a video tonight about a guy with a VPI line of Axanthic, and it was super silvery and bright just in the base, which is just the base Axanthic with no other genes. So I'm thinking there's a lot of variability within the different lines, within what people think they have as far as like either the VPI or the TSK. So another thing I did is kind of as a last resort, I came over here to JD Constriction. I actually saw a YouTube video about this guy, and it's just him and his wife, kind of like I'm doing, just breeding snakes in his basement and cranking out a few snakes. Not a really big breeder. He's kind of a small, mid-sized guy, and he's just has a list here of what's available. I was looking at his 2018 hatchlings. I'm not sure if this is still accurate, but he's got one here that is a GHI SK Axanthic female for $1,100. I was thinking, hey, if he still has that one, that could be a pretty powerful breeder. Something I'd kind of looking for, an SK Axanthic female with another gene on top of it. And I'm not sure if I exactly want the GHI. I would actually prefer to have the fire and the pastel. Probably what I'll do is I'll probably wait till this fall until he's got some more hatchlings, and then maybe shoot from there. Or maybe I'll just shoot him an email and see if he has any females that have the firefly, the fire, and the pastel in there, and see if he's got anything available. So as a ball python breeder, I am always looking towards the future. For example, if I bought that Axanthic female this year, what could I breed with it in 2 or 3 years when it matures? What could I breed with it in 5 years and then 10 years down the road? And let me tell you, some of these projects can take a lifetime, especially when you're talking like quadruple heads, trying to get a quadruple visual or something like that. It's sometimes the odds are just so astronomical, especially if you're shooting just for a male, and then pretty much multiplying your odds by 2 if you're going for one or the other. So I'd say probably in the short term what I do is as soon as that Axanthic female is mature, I would probably cross my albino pied male to that Axanthic female and get some triple hets. And I would probably sell those as pairs because they would be really powerful pairs, breeding a triple het and a triple het. You could get, albinos, pieds, Axanthics. You could get lightning pieds, which is the Axanthic pieds. You could get a whole host of different stuff, albino pieds. It would be really awesome. You could get some amazing snakes. And it almost would be like an Easter egg clutch every single time breeding those together. But let me tell you, if you had quadruple het times quadruple het, especially if you're talking some really powerful genes, the albino, the pied, the Axanthic, and the clown, those are all pretty much the hottest genes on the market. And if you had quadruple hets, let me tell you, that would be, every clutch would be exciting, super exciting. So that's really what I'm looking forward to, is breeding quadruple hets together and getting a huge rainbow of different types of snakes. So that's pretty much it. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.